My name is Rhina P. Espaillat, and I'd like to read a poem of mine titled On Hearing My Name, Pronounced Correctly, Unexpectedly, for Once. The voice over the wire trills my R's, snares me with soft diminutives, and waits for me, in our shared language, to allow my words to trace, like fingers down a scar, stories we've known since childhood, places, dates in brackets on worn stones. He tells me how our old ones slip away, forgetting now faces and names. My cousin hesitates. I take this name again and say good night. Odd how the gringo tongue that shifts translates you into something it can say, but far from what you were, that never gets you right, rolling you round too long, too smooth, too light, loves you at last to who it says you are. Well, as you know, I'm an immigrant. I'm Spanish-speaking from the Dominican Republic, and one of the experiences, it's unexpected, but so many immigrants come across this experience of becoming suddenly someone else, because the people around them, whether it's classmates or neighbors or new friends, who don't speak the language that you speak, can't pronounce you right. And they call you something else, so that you find yourself being, in a way, not the person you used to be, but this other person who can be pronounced by new people. And eventually you do get used to that second name that you now suddenly own. And what you learn, and this is the really surprising part about the experience, that what you learn is that what you're called is not really that important. It's the feeling behind the speaker that's important. It's the voice, it's the sound of the affection in the voice that makes the name your own, even if it isn't. One day my cousin called me, of course, speaking in Spanish over the phone, and it was such a pleasure to hear myself addressed by my old real name, which is Rhina, with the hard Spanish R. And to discover that I really am still that same person. And then when we hung up after a long, delightful conversation, my husband called me, and he is Bronx-born, very American. And I realized that answering him was just as pleasant as speaking to my cousin, because it's a voice that loves me. And that was the experience that brought about the poem. I hardly ever know what it is that a poem is about. What I feel first is something like a drum beat in my mind. It's something that wants to be expressed. I'm not sure yet what it is, and it's accompanied by a feeling. This one came with the sound of the two names, of course. And I knew that the poem that was trying to make its way through my consciousness was something about that experience of the phone call. And that's the way poems usually come, an image or a sound or just a drum beat, the meter, or a little hint. But I listen very closely, because for me writing is the process of listening internally. I have to listen inside my mind to understand what it is the poem wants to be, what it wants to do, what it is it wants to tell me and eventually some reader out there. And sometimes it takes a few hours, sometimes a few days, sometimes they take years. Well, I want to say how important I think poetry is. I think it's important because, first, it's a way that we speak to ourselves in a much more intimate way than we do with intellect. Intellect is wonderful. I'm not downplaying its role in life. I love it. But there is something under it or behind it, and that other something is, it's slower to speak to us, but it speaks the truth of a different kind of truth and a different way. And this is what poetry comes from, and it has to speak to us from our own insides. But it's also important because it's a way that we get through to other people, to other minds, to other subconscious thoughts. And I love communicating with other people. I find it the most satisfying experience in life to feel that I've managed to get through to someone else's mind and heart.